AIM-listed ARC Minerals has a portfolio of highly prospective mineral exploration licenses in Africa. Its principal focus is on copper, and its licenses are in Zambia and Botswana. It's recently established a joint venture with the mining giant Anglo American at the Zambian project in the well-established copper belt where all of the major copper mines in the country are located. All sounds very good. Let's catch up now with the Executive Chairman of ARC Minerals, Nic von Shirnding, who joins us here in the studio. Nic, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
It's a great story. We're all talking about copper. First of all, why copper in your mind? What is it about this mineral that gives you the idea that you're going to make a lot of money out of it?
Look, copper is a bellwether industrial metal. It houses, and drives so many of our everyday uses, from plumbing to all the tech sectors. So it's an amazing metal. It's very pliable. It has so many different uses, and most importantly, the fundamentals in terms of supply demand are very strong for copper. So the outlook for copper now has been a little bit weaker because of more recent Chinese GDP developments, but that's short term. Longer term, we're very positive on copper.
Okay, and to the point at which I know Anglo American are now interested in this joint venture that you've managed to hammer out. Just tell us a little bit more about how that came about, because my understanding was that Anglo American actually owned this asset in the first place.
Indeed, they did. Anglo exited Zambia, I think it was around 2000, and one of the assets that they exited was this Northwest Domes region where we are today located. We're in the sort of western side of that. On the eastern side, today what was former Anglo territory houses three major multi-billion-dollar mines, two by First Quantum and one by Barrick. So this is very, very prospective area, probably I think the most prospective copper terrain in the world, in a very safe and stable region in Zambia. So we've acquired the other side of that Domes region. We've done a lot of drilling over the last 3 or 4 years, and everywhere we've hit has shown copper mineralization. And I think that really led to the transaction that we've just concluded with Anglo.
But it leads to the question as to why did Anglo shift away from it in the first place? I mean, clearly they want back in now, and they've got obviously what is a good deal for ARC, presumably, which you can talk about in a minute. But it's interesting to see why they exited there in the first place.
Look, I can't speak for Anglo, but the press reports I think at the time said that they wanted to diversify out of parts of Africa, and I think Zambia was one of those areas. But they're back, and that's the key thing.
Tell us about the structure of the deal and what it means for shareholders in ARC.
So look, this is, and I quote from an analyst note, this is arguably the best exploration deal ever concluded for certainly the last 20 or 30 years. And I say that for a number of reasons. And one is the size of the entire deal is $88.5 million. That's a huge amount of money, even for a major like Anglo to invest into the ground. ARC gets about $15.5 million in cash, phased over a number of years, and that's tremendous for our shareholders. And that obviously avoids any future raise for ARC, and that's a big plus for a junior. But most importantly, 74 million or thereabouts goes into the ground, and that is obviously the key point of this deal, which is to start exploring. And they've Anglo and ourselves, we've been working through the plans to start drilling. Once we close out the final sort of conditions precedent of this transaction, we'll get going.
You said that ARC is going to get money on from this deal. What milestones do you have to hit to get those payments?
So once we close out this deal, the first payment is $3.5 million, and then it's $1 million every year thereafter, and then a bullet payment at the end of that third year of $8 million. So it's a very significant amount of money coming into ARC. The other point which is critical is that we maintain a very significant stake going forward at 30%, with Anglo at 70%. So, if and when we hit something major and it turns into a much bigger entity, or hopefully a mine one day, ARC shareholders will benefit by being a very major shareholder in that deposit with 30%.
And of course, you mustn't lose sight of the fact that ARC is an exploration company. Does it mean ultimately you'll turn into a producer with Anglo American, or will Anglo American buy you out and take on the asset as a production?
Look, the way the deal's structured is we remain as a 30% shareholder, and we will have to obviously fund our way through that in terms of any development costs, which obviously would be quite significant. But that's a nice problem to sit with, because, you know, if you look at other companies that have hit major deposits with majors, you know, the market capitalization of those companies has sort of, you know, gone, you know, x-fold. So to raise money to fund capex and so on going forward is less of an issue at that stage. So I'm not particularly concerned about that. But yes, you know, obviously everything is potentially for sale in life, and if Anglo, you know, at that stage want to buy us out, you know, we'll have to have a look at it.
And of course, you're an obligation, of course, to respond to shareholder demands in that respect. If you get a good deal, obviously you have to go down that route anyway. Yeah. Drilling. When do you expect to kick off on a drill campaign with this joint venture?
Look, we've already done some quite advanced preliminary work. So the teams have been to site recently. I was there 2 weeks ago. It's all looking very good. We want to get drilling as quickly as possible because, you know, that part of the region has a wet season which is about to end now, and then we've really got a sort of window of 6 to 7 months to start drilling. So we've identified a drilling company, and we're really just wanting to close out these last final conditions precedent, which I don't foresee any issues with. I think those are going to be completed quite soon in the next few weeks. And then we'll be there and get going, which is when really the rubber hits the road, as they say.
You've described what is very exciting, potentially very exciting projects, and it's clear that you're excited about it. Let me just bring up a share price chart, because one of the questions we got in from clients was, why has the share price not responded as one might have expected in this situation, given the fact you've now got this money coming on, you've got a good joint venture partner, you've got assets which look like they're going to develop. We all know the markets are under a lot of pressure at the moment. And of course, you have no control over the share price, that has to be said as well. But what do you say to shareholders at 3.4 pence, which is where we are at the moment on this chart?
Look, the share price has been disappointing. We were as high as 8p without a deal, and now we're, as you say, 3.5, 4p with the deal. So, you know, I always think it's very dangerous for managements to comment on share prices. That's not our job, that's the market's job. I don't think there's anything particular with our deal and what we're about as to why the share price is where it is. I think you're right, the markets have been weak recently, and particularly the junior sectors. AIM as a more general sector has been weak. And so we've no doubt been hit by that. I think also people want to see the final deal close, and that will happen in the next, in the very near future, in the next few weeks, and then also to see, you know, rigs on the ground and drilling, and that too will happen. So I'm not too worried about the share price. That'll take care of itself, and you know, we have as you say, we have a tremendous cash position post this deal. We have some non-core investments which we can realize if we wanted to, which I think have done quite well recently. And then most importantly, we're working with a first-rate major who know this area very well. And you know, hopefully we stumble onto something much bigger. I
want to take a look at that other interest in just a couple of minutes' time, if I can, with that other interest you've got on the balance sheet. Zambia, how good is it? Is there any sort of political risk, you think, in the share price, or is Zambia a really good place for mining companies?
No, I don't think there's any political risk. I mean, there's always political risk, and you have to adjust that. But you know, Zambia has been always a very stable country for foreign investment and for mining in particular. They've got a very good mining infrastructure. And you have to have that in terms of your mining regulations and laws, because, you know, ultimately you're investing a lot of money into the ground, and you can't take all that equipment out tomorrow if you feel like it. You know, so you really have to take a long-term investment decision. So Zambia has that infrastructure around mining and exploration that's very well established, and the laws are very well established, and licensing and so on. They also have a very good independent judiciary, and the rule of law there, you know, really does work. And lastly, the new government that has been elected about 18 months ago under President Hichilema has done a great job in terms of trying to clear up some of the historic issues that have affected Zambia. And I would say, you know, he was here last week and gave a speech to a packed audience with a number of big UK investors. You know, Zambia, when you look at other places in mining, I've said it's like the sort of Switzerland of mining. I think it's an amazing place, very stable, very safe. and a new administration that's really powering through and trying to attract further foreign investment. So the political risk there is small. And to me, it's all about whether we hit the mother lode, and I'm confident we will at some stage.
It's interesting because I said at the top you've got other project interests in Botswana, which of course is another nation in Africa which has a pretty good reputation, politically very stable, mining friendly. What about that asset in Botswana? Is it a back burner issue at the moment, or are you moving ahead with it?
Yes, look, we were invested in the KCB, which is the Kalahari Copper Belt. So that's another very prospective area. It doesn't have as much detailed history of drilling that we have in Zambia, in the Domes region where we operate. But having said that, adjacent to us is Khomakau, which is an existing operating copper asset. And I think what we have there in terms of our footprint is very interesting. You're right, we have focused on getting the Zambia deal done because obviously that's the most value accretive at this stage. But, we're getting the assays back and we'll report back further on Botswana. So that is very interesting. And, another major actually commented to us about how they thought it was a very smart acquisition that we made there. So, fingers crossed that comes into fruition as well.
Yeah. Let's pick up on that point about the other interests you have as a company and value on the balance sheet, which presumably at some point, if you can, and you do have to cash those in, I guess these are good assets. I want to take a look at the share price here, Tingo Group, which I understand you have an interest in. How much of an interest in Tingo does ARCM have at the moment?
So we hold 3 million shares in Tingo. This was part of a deal that when we exited and sold our gold asset in the DRC in South Kivu, we acquired an interest in this asset and extinguished a loan note. It's quite an interesting asset. It's a sort of a mixture of agribusiness and tech. It's listed in the US. Its liquidity is not great, but they have further plans, we understand, to merge with another group. And so we think that could be quite interesting for us to hold in the short term. But it's a non-core asset for us, so at some stage we will realise it.
Will you realise that before coming back to the market for more money if you need it in terms
for sure.
of... So that is a better option than coming to the market.
It is indeed. And look, we don't have any plans to go to the market for any further raise because, with our non-core investments like Tingo, and we also have a non-core interest in Canada, which is related to the DRC sale as well. And that listed gold group is I think got quite an interesting future as well. So we have those assets. We have some other non-core assets that we've invested in, listed assets, which we could realize if we wanted to. But most importantly, we're getting a significant amount of cash in from this deal, which then, certainly allows us to continue doing what we're doing. Short of another major deal that we might want to do, obviously you can never rule out that, but short of that, we don't intend to go back to the market for any further raise. But, we're not going to sit around waiting to find something in Zambia. We certainly have other plans that we're looking at going forward.
Well, that was going to be my next question as to whether or not you are going to go for any more JVs or acquisitions of any type to grow the business. What are the plans to continue to move forward?
Look, I think the plan really that we would like to execute is to acquire assets that are either in production or close to production. And I think there are a few opportunities there. One that we're looking in Zambia at the moment, which could be very interesting. The other one in Namibia and potentially Botswana. So we're going to focus on those sort of 3 Southern Africa countries. They're very stable, they're very prospective, and we'll have to see. But yes, we're certainly keen to drive this company forward with some attractive new investments and developments, because I think what we've built today, we're about a circa 50 million pound market cap. When I took over, I think it was close to 2 million. But we're very ambitious. We have a small focus group at the centre, and we want to grow this company quite aggressively.
So what should we be looking out for to check you're on target? Headlines.
Look, I think you'll have to see what we next develop in terms of any new interest. But
in terms of joint venture and so forth, that's going to be where the news comes through.
Yeah. So the next sort of milestone will be to close out these conditions precedent. They're mainly regulatory, and these things take longer sometimes than people think. But as I say, in the next few weeks, we expect that to be completed. We haven't run into any roadblocks, so I expect that to be done. So we'll announce that very shortly. And then the second part will then be really to elaborate on our drilling program, where we're starting, how much we're going to drill, where we're going to drill, and so on. And that, as I say, that's really when the rubber hits the road, because that then really unlocks what we think is a very, very big opportunity in that northwest part of Zambia where we are.
Look, we wish you luck, and do come back and tell us what updates you have, because it's an exciting project to continue to monitor. Nic, it's a pleasure. Nic von Shirnding is the Executive Chairman of ARC Minerals. For more videos from us here at IGTV, join us on Twitter at IGCom, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.